Well, guess what we're going to talk about today? It's another quirky deep dive moment. And today I'm going to talk about something that might affect quite a large proportion of women. Yes, this is going to be about a topic that you might not even realise permeates every aspect of your life, and that is internalized misogyny. So what do I mean by this? So in case you didn't know, the word misogyny is kind of woman hating. The male version of this would be misandry, so people who hate men. So misogyny is a hatred towards women, and there's a lot of it about, and it is on every level and every facet of our social kind of hierarchy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So what is internalized misogyny? Well, you might be familiar with, misogynistic males, such as Andrew Tate, for example. He's probably a really relevant example of a man that absolutely hates women. And he doesn't perhaps realise why he hates them, but I think somebody needs to deal with their sexuality and then realise why they hate women before they start frothing on about it. But that is another subject for a different video, and this one is going to talk about how you might be internalizing your own misogyny without realizing it, because we all do it. I've tried to be an elevated human being who's really worked hard on not being this person, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what that means and how that sort of transcends in my life. But let's sort of get into what internalized misogyny is. So as we said, misogyny is the kind of hatred or dislike, intense dislike of women. And internalized misogyny is when women subconsciously or unconsciously absorb and act out sexist beliefs about themselves or other women. And it isn't our fault. It's a byproduct of living in a society where gender inequality is baked into our culture, institutions, and our language. I teach A-level language, gender, and definitely I can tell you a lot about this. And how it's made this beautiful kind of cake, because metaphorically speaking, because that's what we do. We kind of judge women, and we police women, and we critique women far more than we do men. And although this is starting to change a little bit, and wow, isn't it good that it is starting to change, we kind of need to catch ourselves in the habit of these little behaviours and get to the bottom of them. Everyday examples of internalized misogyny. I'm sorry, excuse me, yeah, over-apologising, apologising for literally existing or being there. Women in Britain are particularly raised to apologise just for existing, aren't we? Whether we're talking about being on the bus and knocking into somebody, speaking in meetings, especially male-dominated meetings, when we need to be maybe more assertive in how we speak, or breathing too loudly in prep. Men don't do this half as much as women do. And that's because it's ingrained within women to be naturally apologetic. Now, I know British culture is about apologising, and let's get this right. British men are equally very polite and apologetic in the circumstances where politeness is needed. But if they're in a meeting, they're more likely to speak in declaratives. I think that this is what we should do, as opposed to maybe what a woman would say, which would be more tentative. Maybe, possibly, this is just a suggestion, sorry, but we could try doing this. Well, what do you think? And it's that lack of confidence or assertion or seizing the floor and that dominance that maybe not all women have. I do think this is changing. I certainly feel that I'm starting to operate in a much more assertive way. I understand language. My background is in using language, the English language, in a particular way. But, you will see women be doing this and being more apologetic about putting forward their ideas. And these ideas can be very, very clever. These ideas and initiatives can be very, very good. But again, it's whether the men, the gatekeepers of these institutions that we work in, will allow us to do that. And sometimes we're expected to apologise more. There is a submissiveness to being a woman that perhaps, isn't naturally ingrained within men. And that is the internalized misogyny, that we should be more apologetic. We shouldn't take up more space. We should be, you know, a little bit more timid and a little bit more insular in our approach to things. And we don't have to be. Why can't we behave just like our equally as brilliant male counterparts who, you know, feel that they have that power and authority to speak in command? And it's not all men, you know, that lovely phrase that we band about, you know, because it isn't all men. And I'm stereotyping, and I'm going on data, and I'm going on studies, I'm going on commonalities here. You might watch this video and go, well, I don't do that. I'm not talking about everybody, but the vast majority of women don't feel that assertiveness because it is knocked out of them, or has been knocked out of them at a young age. And I'm a mother, and I'm raising a sassy pants young lady, and I look at her, and I've worked really hard on not knocking the sassy pants out of her, because I certainly felt as a child that I was told to, like, don't speak up, don't do this, behave in a slightly different way. And I think we can do this with our daughters, and we maybe don't do that as much with our sons, and maybe we need to change that if we want to see these changes taking place. And the worst aspect of internalized misogyny is policing other women, passing judgment on other women's choices. Because, wow, that's the patriarchy getting us to do the work for it by having women say bad things about other women. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been mean? Have you ever criticised a woman's makeup wearing? You know, she's wearing too much makeup. She's too loud. She's obnoxious. She's bossy. Ooh, have you ever heard a man referred to as bossy? No. Why not? Because men can be bossy. Men are pretty bossy all the time. But that adjective is very much reserved for women, because women aren't supposed to, linking back to that apology reflex that I just talked about, women are supposed to be, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm taking up space. And yet so many women I know are, you know, not going to do that anymore, and I love that about us. So yeah, calling a man bossy when we say a woman is bossy, when a man is assertive. I'm a pretty assertive person. In fact, I've got very confident now in understanding that my power comes in my ability to lead, make decisions, and the confidence in what I'm doing is right. And that's come from experience as well. And maybe younger people don't have that, but certainly women my age should be taking ownership of that and being comfortable in their leadership skills. Labelling mothers as selfish for returning to work, or lazy if they don't return to work. No woman works harder than a mother, because you are responsible for emotional well-being of people, physically taking care of them, feeding them, nurturing them, and bringing about the amazing, you know, next generation of little human beings. And that comes with a lot of energy and work. Yeah, mothers get a really raw deal, don't they? Like, why do we not like mothers? What did mothers do wrong? I mean, we were all raised by mothers, and don't get me wrong, there could be varying degrees of mothers. Some women are amazing natural earth mothers, and some mothers probably shouldn't have had kids, but were probably forced into it because of patriarchy that made them have very limited choices, and motherhood and marriage seemed to be the only pathway for them. And maybe that's then been internalized as trauma that's been passed down for a few generations. So, you know, being a female doesn't mean you're going to be a mother, but those of you that are mothers, you know, you work damn hard if you're trying to do the job well. And yeah, there's a lot of judgment. You breastfed, you bottle fed, you snapped back into shape, you haven't snapped back into shape, you've let yourself go, your kids are well behaved. And it's like that thing, isn't it, where the dad takes the kids to the park and he's an amazing dad. Then the mum takes the kids to the park, and like, that's just expected, that's your job. And you can be a full-time working mum, but you still have to parent like you don't have a job, and you have to work like you don't parent and you don't have kids. And that's impossible. And we've created that standard, and then we all jump in and judge it, and we all judge each other. Like, no men are sitting around judging fathers. Do you comment on the fathers? Now, are we sitting here going, oh, he's a bit of a lazy dad? Because I've started to do that. Like, I know men that are pretty rubbish at dadding, And I will say that, I'll point them out. Like, being a good dad is, meeting mothers at the same level, in my opinion. Are you cooking nutritious food for your kids? Are you pushing them on the swings at the park? Are you taking them to their hobbies and interests? Are you buying their school uniforms and school shoes? Are you going to those parents' evenings? Are you emailing the school when there's a problem? If you're a dad that doesn't do these things, then you need to step up, because that's your role. And there are some amazing dads. And I've noticed same-sex relationships, the dads in those, chef's kiss half the time, because gender is removed from it. And I'm going to be the primary caregiver, and I'm going to be the caregiver that goes home, or because that works more or whatever, but there's more balance because they're not going to force themselves into these gender restrictive roles. And that's absolutely amazing, isn't it? But the internalized misogyny bubbles up, and we're all judging each other on all the aspects of being a mother and just being a female, and policing what women wear. We start this very, very young. My daughter is in primary school, and the school sent out an email about girls wearing Nike Pro shorts. Other shorts are available, but it was particular about these shorts, and they are short. But if an 8-year-old girl is wearing Nike Pro shorts, it's because she's an 8-year-old girl wearing shorts that are comfortable. I mean, that she can do sport and activities. And that's it. She's a child wearing shorts. There is no need to police that, because that's internalized misogyny, that women's bodies cannot dress in a particular way. And this is one of the worst things about internalized misogyny. Your skirt's too short, that top's too tight, and then judging our bodies like she's too fat, she's too thin, she's too chesty. That's just a body, and we're going to put clothes on it. And you can dress your body however you want and what you're comfortable with. And it's no one's business how you choose to dress. There is actually no dress code for life. A really long time ago, we used to walk around in loincloths and semi-naked. And I'm sure people then weren't judging it. And this is it, this objectification of bodies and this policing of what women wear. Way more like, I am not sitting there reading the Daily Fail and seeing Donald Trump wears tight fitting navy suit to UN conference, with his gingery hair blowing in the wind and the soft ruddy orange of his skin glowing with vibrance. And yet, I would probably see female leaders, described in terms, and I remember Theresa May a few years ago, looking svelte and purposeful in her navy suit and pointy stiletto shoes. I'm like, why? And when I did that to Donald Trump then, that sounded ridiculous. And yet we think that's how we should talk about women. I know, women dress like this, women do that. I don't care. They can dress how they bloody want. I might not want to dress that way myself, but I can make choices. But I'm not going to judge another person on how they dress. I can internalize the thoughts like, that's not for me. But again, who am I to police anybody? I don't know. Where do we draw the line? But yeah, this critiquing of women, it has to stop. And we have to stop it ourselves. So we've just seen women can be catty about other women's choices, and that's conditioning. That's what we've been taught to do, to police other women, to feel a certain way, to compete against other women. And that's not fair. And the reason for that is because it divides us, because united we stand, divided we fall. And we take away our own agency and our own power when we're so busy competing with each other and turning other women into the enemy. They're not our enemies. They're just other women. And, I don't think men turn each other into enemies the way that women do. Or, look at Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle. They married brothers and they are pitted against each other. One acts the way she's supposed to, one doesn't, one's this, one's that. They're just people. And of course they're going to be different. They're culturally different. One's American, one's British. They're physically different, and that's okay. And let's face it, the royal family is a little bit of a hot mess. And I don't actually see them being these role models of society that we all seem to uphold as being brilliant. I mean, Prince Andrew, anyone? And, rumours of infidelity and affairs, anybody? and like we turn them into martyrs or heroines or villains. Like they're just people like anybody else in a family doing their best, but there's just a lot of wealth and privilege and expectation on that family, and we put those kind of constructs into that, so maybe we're equally to blame for that. But again, the royal family is a different video for a different day, but pitting women against each other, it's not cool, it's not great, it's not necessary, is it? So women competing against women, and this brings me to the worst type of female, the pick-me girl or the cool girl myth. Hey, pick me, man, I'm not like the other girls. I just want to be validated by you. Again, I don't judge these women. If you need your male validation, you need it, and that's fine, that's for you. But you know, it used to be lad culture, being one of the lads. And there's nothing wrong with being one of the boys. There's nothing wrong with being laddish, and there's nothing wrong with being quite a masculine female. Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. There is no right or wrong way of being female, in my opinion. I mean, feel free to argue with me. But you know, these girls I can throw down a pint, I'm going to eat the kebabs. Absolutely fine. You can be those girls. But when you're one of those girls that says, no, I don't like other girls, they're too much drama, they're too catty, they're just like hard work, and you kind of reinforcing all of the stuff that I've just said, that is massively internalized misogyny. Your own betraying your own gender, isn't it, to align with masculine values. Again, nothing wrong with that, but when you are throwing your gender under the bus in order to validate yourself to a group of oppressive males, the gender that does oppress us, then that's not great. And I get it, assimilate in order to be accepted. That's what we do as human beings. But yeah, you know, don't be such a minx about it, okay? Like, just because you're not into the things that other women are into, that's okay. And women can be the most brilliant and supportive people in the world. And personally, I've never met women that I haven't been able to get on the level with or make into really good friends or who I haven't respected. And it taps into that male loneliness crisis that we hear about. And I think it's because women do the emotional work, don't they? And good women are willing to sit and listen and try and be their best. Don't get me wrong, there's some toxic femininity, and I could talk about a different video about toxic femininity. And again, toxic femininity is probably these internalized misogynistic behaviors that I'm talking about in this video. But it isn't empowering to seek validation by aligning with men and distancing yourself from femininity, because what's wrong with femininity? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with masculinity. These are, you can be a female with masculine qualities, you can be a male with feminine qualities, but we judge those female qualities way more, or those feminine qualities way more than we judge those masculine qualities. And that's not great, and that's not appropriate, is it really? Let's just allow people to be who they are and accept and be tolerant and be respectful, because those are kind of the big lessons here, aren't they? Oh, and then this one, the gender pay gap. Men get so defensive about this. And I've had this happen to me. I graduated from university and I started a job along with another graduate who had graduated from university. We were both same age and we were both starting out in our careers. And this was in an industry, not the industry that I work in now, so not education. It was pharmaceuticals, actually. And we both did the same job. We sat opposite each other in the same office. And he got paid £300 a month more than I did for doing the same job. Is that fair? No, it is not. I mean, this was 20 years ago, so you could argue, well, it was 20 years ago, things are different now, but they're not. And I did go to HR because I felt like, why is he getting more money for doing the same job? And the only difference was gender. But they managed to come back to me and say that he was dealing with a different set of invoices to the invoices that I was dealing for a different branch of the company. And therefore, that's how he got paid more. But it boiled my blood, and obviously I left that job and moved into a completely different industry, one that I think tries to be fairer. But still, it really grieved me, it really irked me, because in my honest opinion, this gentleman was actually less hardworking, took longer breaks, wasn't kind of as, fastidious in how he worked, and he was getting more money than me. And already that was my first taste of it, of that inequality and that lack of fairness. And this translates into sometimes just not appreciating female skill sets, not promoting the women over the men. And then those ideas that, well, women are going to go off and have a baby. Not all women are having babies. Sometimes dads have babies, and sometimes dads struggle with it. In fact, I've worked with a couple of colleagues in my job where once their partner had a baby, they really struggled with it because it changed their whole home, and their partner might have been struggling, or the massive transition to having no baby and suddenly having a baby is huge. And the dad struggled too. And you know what? Work supported that, as they should. They should always support good workers who are having difficulty outside of their home lives, because work is a place we spend a predominant amount of time, and it puts a lot of pressure on us. So it's not just women that are affected by having these babies, and these babies are typically made by men too. It takes two to make a baby, and typically a man and a woman, even though it might not necessarily be a man and woman raising them. But I'm losing my point here a little bit. But what I'm saying is that inequality, that internalized, ingrained idea that women are going to go off and have babies, we can't promote them the same, that men are the breadwinners and that they need to be paid slightly more because they're going to be supporting the family. Well, how many men divorce their wives, separate from their wives, and we're left with single parents? And the majority of the single parenting comes down to the women. But we're not going, well, single parent females need to be paid more because they're usually the ones doing, between 55 and 100% of the child rearing. Don't get me wrong, there are some dads out there that do all the child rearing in the case of separation. I don't want you to feel offended by, any internalized misandric views. But it isn't fair, is it? And, not being paid equally for the same skills because of gender, like anything where a protected characteristic like your gender, ethnicity, age, disability, whatever it is, doesn't mean that you're not capable or competent or trying to do your best. In fact, sometimes you will work harder because you want to prove yourself more. And it isn't fair to put on these pressures and expectations and for this inequality to exist. And the only time we can challenge this inequality is by talking about it and highlighting it and pointing out these examples of it, and working to change the world that we live in incrementally. Most women don't get paid for the last 6 weeks of the year. That's what it is equivalent to. So men would get paid for the full year, and women would start being paid at the start of November, in terms of that inequality. And that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? We're all trying to live. We all need to buy stuff. We all need to pay our bills. We all have things to spend money on, and why shouldn't we be paid the same? And it's been a historical argument, hasn't it? And I mean, its roots were in a society where women weren't perceived, women weren't allowed to vote at some points, women weren't allowed bank accounts, women weren't allowed to get credit. There's loads of things that only recently women have been allowed to do. This one is being the good girl. I'm a good girl. What exactly is a good girl? Are you a good girl? Are you the girl that sits there and won't say anything? Because I'm not. I will. I'm not obnoxious. I'm going to tell you my opinion. And do you want me to tell you why I'll tell you my opinion? Because I feel you're entitled to hear it. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm not asking you to think that I am right. But I'm going to voice my opinion, and maybe your opinion sharing will make me learn and change my opinion on something. But a lot of women just sit there quietly, like there's a prize for not sharing their thoughts, and it's I can't say that, and that's not right. And the difficult woman, we're not supposed to be difficult women, and yet change only happens through women being difficult. Be difficult. Take up space. Be too much. Because what's the alternative? Hating yourself because you just sit there and get silent and awkward? You know, whether you don't stand up against harassment, whether you don't stand up against some oppressive force, you know, whether you ignore that banter that was offensive. Sometimes you need to speak up. I have sat in front of people more powerful than me and they've said something and I've gone, well, that's not fair, that's this, that's that. And they've been made to feel awkward and uncomfortable because I pointed it out. But equally, maybe me pointing it out is helping them to learn how to be better, because I genuinely believe that all human beings want to be better. And I think if we don't educate and we don't try to do this, and I know I'm naturally an educator, that's what my role is, but certainly I feel like we need to try and help each other out here. And there's nothing wrong with being called out on something. I have been called out for things that have been sensitive before, to do with race, and I said something and I caught myself. I was like, I'm so sorry, that was a comment that comes from a place of unconscious bias. And I held myself accountable for that, and I tried to learn and educate myself. And shouldn't we all do that? I'm not going to make jokes about your physicality. I'm not going to try and make jokes about your personal qualities if it's going to cause problems. And therefore, we should be pointing this out to other people and be like, you can't say that, it's not appropriate, or that's not how I would approach it, or I don't think that's right. Wrong. There's a time and a place to keep your mouth quiet and your opinions to yourself, and there are circumstances when you shouldn't always put your thoughts out there. And again, I need to learn that just as much as anybody else. But then there are times when we do need to speak up and we do need to say enough is enough and this isn't right, this is wrong, and we need to call it out. And there's nothing wrong with that. And as I've said, there is, you know, politeness over self-advocacy isn't great. You know, we need to be able to speak in our truth and empower ourselves, and that's really important. So the last bit of this video then, and I've pulled up a couple of examples, and I don't know if you've looked at these examples and gone, yeah, actually, or okay, that makes sense, or well, this isn't my personal experience, whatever strata of life you're in, maybe some of this resonates, some of this doesn't. But why is it so hard to spot? Because it feels normal, doesn't it? Because in a school, like, don't roll your skirt up, take your makeup off, don't wear nails, don't have lashes. You know, that starts very young, and the policing of girls' clothes in school happens way sooner and way younger in my daughter's primary school than it does for boys. You know, maybe their haircuts are critiqued, but outside of that, in an untucked shirt, very little is done about, you know, males dressing in a particular way for school, whereas a lot's done for females, and a lot of policing and a lot of judging on that. And we grow up in the media, and as I've said, representation of gender gives us our social cues and our messages of how we're supposed to behave. And there are lots of subtleties within society. Like, we talk about Disney princesses. Are we letting the little boys wear the Elsa dresses? I hope we are, because I've got a photo of my son in an Elsa dress and he looks cute, and I've got a photo of my son getting his nails painted and it looks cute because he was interested and he was curious, and there's nothing wrong with female pursuits or those kind of behaviours. And you know what? Well done, because we're seeing a lot more of that in society now, aren't we? Equally, if my daughter wants to play with guns, or well, to be fair, not guns, nobody should really want to play with guns, but anyway, if she wants to play football, or if she wants to wrestle, that's absolutely fine. She can do that. Like, both of my children can do that. They can do whatever they want. Social conditioning is part of the problem, and we need to change our views on things, because if we don't talk and change the narrative, then we're going to get trapped in it, aren't we? As I've said about, you know, the Daily Fail is a tabloid or middle market daily that likes to shame women, and it isn't shaming men in quite the same way. It does not objectify men in quite the same way, but it really hates women. And ironically, did you know that most of the readers of the Daily Mail are actually women? So again, that's the internalized misogyny. We're all sitting there because we love having a little whinge and a moan about other women, don't we? Or judging other women. And that's because we're obviously hooked on this and we're not aware enough to stop it. And TV ads showing dads babysitting their own children rather than looking after them. Like, I love that the Flash advert now will have the dad mopping the floor. Well done, dad knows where the mop is. Fantastic. And then people whinge about that, like, oh, it's too PC, it's too woke. Is it? Or is there just a group of us that are fed up of seeing the same old stereotypes and not seeing ourselves represented, and not seeing that this fairness and the equality that maybe operates in other people's homes. Just because you're stuck in the dark ages as a dinosaur who has very specific gender stereotypes, good for you, but not everybody is living like that, and we certainly are a lot more gender fluid these days, and you need to embrace that. I think we all do. So the second part of this video is going to be how we can overcome it together. Now I've explained what internalized misogyny is, and let's see if there's some strategies that we can employ to help us to be less internally misogynistic. So the strategies and how we prevent this, how we stop this, how we change it. So first of all, notice the narrative. Start recognizing the internal voice inside you, and the next time it's like, oh, I can't wear a top like that, my arms look... No, wear the top. There's nothing wrong with the top, nothing wrong with your arms. There's no arm that's too skinny, there's no arm that's too fat, they're just arms. You can wear whatever you want, that's absolutely fine. And then think about, who told me that I can't wear that? Why do I feel uncomfortable about that? And why do I care? I mean, is it because we're so worried that someone is judging our bodies? Are you going around looking at everybody else's body and making judgments on them? So you need to think, oh, wow, that's a really a lot of time and energy wasted on that. So noticing the narrative. 2, challenge your own biases. Look at yourself and think about, why does this make me uncomfortable? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel that all pretty girls are bimbos? Because some really intelligent women are actually quite attractive as well. And why do I not like her because she's wearing stiletto heels? Why do I feel more comfortable because she's in leggings and a sweatshirt? Like, where is this coming from? And then stop yourself. If you see a woman who's too confident, what does that say about you? Is it because actually you're a bit jealous of that confidence? Or if a woman is too masculine and not feminine enough, or too loud or too humorous, or whatever it is, ask yourself, what is that saying about me? Because if you're triggered, it says more about you. That's something to do with you and a wound and a problem that exists within you, because most people don't find other people that triggering. And if they do, they look at it like, I find racist people triggering. I find sexist people triggering. I find homophobic people triggering, as I think we all ought to do, because I don't like, it makes me uncomfortable that people can be so negative and shallow-minded and hateful towards other human beings and not accept that everybody has a slightly, lived different experience. So we have to question ourselves. We have to challenge our own biases. And think about, would I say the same thing about a man? Am I sitting there going, Kyle at work shouldn't have his arms out, he's too fat? And if the answer is no, then why are you doing it to other women or to yourself? So yeah, think about that. Speak up even when it's awkward. And this is hard. This is so hard. And start small, start with comfortable things. So when someone says a sexist joke, just go, oh, what do you mean by that? Oh, that was a bit sexist. Explain why it's funny. It doesn't have to come across in an antagonistic or aggressive way. It could just be a polite little phrase like, oh, I didn't find that funny. It seemed a bit sexist, but maybe I don't get it. Explain it. Flip it. Flipping is a really powerful tool. And when some people it is about power and control. And sometimes people are testing the waters with their inappropriate humor and their jokes. So when we do call them out on it, people suddenly realize, oh, I might be challenged on this, or, oh, this person thinks differently to me, or, oh, I never thought this was the wrong way to joke. So we do need to do that. Support women in meetings. If you are in the boardroom and there are 3 women and you can see one of your colleagues who's female trying to get her voice heard in the meeting and it being ignored, speak up, support her, go, oh, I think Claire was trying to say something. I think Aisha had a point. There's nothing wrong with that. Or, oh, sorry, Carl, let's listen to what Denise has to say. I think she has a good point. Be there, show up for each other. We can do that, can't we? Can we? I think we can. Challenge double standards when we hear them. I wouldn't wear that if I were her. Why wouldn't you? And what's wrong with what she's wearing? Or why are you judging? Why are you calling that out? Sometimes there's double standards, or, look at her, she didn't spend that much time with her kids. She's off on another weekend away with the girls, but the husband or the dad had like a weekend golfing and you didn't say anything about that. Is that because you have an internalized misogynistic view of it? Potentially, yeah, so call it out. And if you hear somebody saying stuff like that, then just challenge it. Nothing wrong with challenging it. Maybe they have a really good valid point for having that view, but typically they probably don't. Redefine what power and success look like. So patriarchy thrives when we pit women against each other, and when we compete, and like we have to take the scraps from the table. Why can't that boardroom be filled with women? I work in a great environment actually, which is filled with female leadership, and I love it. And yeah, not all of my female leaders make great decisions, just like all of the male leaders I've ever worked with haven't always made great decisions, but you know what? They try their best, and I can get on board with that. And yeah, let's flip the script. Let's celebrate the wins that women have. You know, instead of being, oh, she's a female doctor, she's just a doctor. We don't go around saying he's a male doctor, he's a male bus driver, he's a male CEO. Well, maybe we can. Maybe that's a form of microaggression that we should all adopt. Mentor and sponsor. Instead of feeling threatened by the young nubile person in the office, mentor them, coach them. I see a lot of this in my workplace where we take people under our wings, we nurture them, and we allow them to grow and become the great female leaders that they can be. We can all do this. Back each other up. In politics, in public life, support each other. Don't leave the girl hanging. Share the viewpoint. And it is hard. We've all been there. And I've been on the edge of feeling compelled to say or act and sometimes not always supporting, but I'm trying my best, like we all are here. And teaching the next generation. This is important, isn't it? We want all of the future generations to be, you know, on the same page and not live with the stereotypes or the problems that we've maybe endured growing up in the last 20, 30 years. So teach boys that emotions are okay. My son is crying, that's all right. It's not big boys don't cry. It's actually you're expressing your emotions and that's healthy. Let's give you some tools to cope with that. You know, girls can lead. That's fine. You're not bossy. You are assertive. Show diverse role models. Expose them to different groups of people doing different things. Have those conversations about differences and things that are comfortable and uncomfortable maybe to talk about. You know, be that person. Show up. Don't just assume someone else is going to educate your kids. It's your responsibility to do that. And what is the end game? Is it smashing the patriarchy? It isn't about hating men. I bloody love men. Probably shouldn't use the word bloody, but let's just go there. Men are great. Men are brilliant. Men are phenomenal fathers. Men can be brilliant caregivers. They can be the best friend that you may ever have. They can be absolutely brilliant, and they have their problems and they have their struggles. And, you know, that again, that's a different video for a different time. But let's remember, patriarchy traps men too. I mean, imagine how miserable it is when you feel like you can't cry. Imagine how miserable it is when you know the only emotion you can safely express is anger or violence or hate. Those are the only emotions that men seem to be able to challenge without judgment. And that is patriarchy, isn't it? That's controlling the narrative. That's saying that men can't do this, men can't show up in the way that maybe they want to. And raising a boy and a girl, I think my son is way more sensitive than my daughter. My daughter is way more assertive and aggressive than my son. And that's come about because that's who they are. And that isn't anything to do with gender. That's their personalities. And yeah, men can take paternal leave. Men can stay at home and look after the baby. And that's what we want to do. We want that equality. Your wife can earn more than you. Your girlfriend can earn more than you. That's okay. There's no prize for earning more money. And so what do I want us all to do? What are the big takeaways from this? So if we're smashing the patriarchy, it's about creating a society where we have equity and we speak without apology. We lead without backlash. We earn equally. We respect differences. We respect people's capabilities for what they are and not what their gender defines them as. And this is really important. and we allow people to exist freely. I mean, isn't that what we're all here to do on this nice little life lesson that we're all trying to learn from? And we're British, so we can do this. We know how to queue, we know how to complain, and we know how to organise a protest when there's free cake involved. And smashing the patriarchy isn't one big moment. It's going to be a really slow burn, and we've already made immense progress in the last 20 years. And I think we'll make immense progress in the next 20 years as long as we don't allow ourselves to feel trapped under archaic and old structures that make us feel invalid or make us feel isolated from the shared experience of being a human being. And that can just be down to like defining ourselves purely through one lens, like our religion, our gender, our job, our level of education, our political affiliations. We're actually a broad spectrum, and there's a lot that we can be. We can be 100 different things. We can have 100 different thoughts a day, 1,000 different thoughts, 1,000,000 different thoughts a day. And we shouldn't define ourselves by such reduced, narrow categories. And this is important. We're going to call out Kevin. We're going to support Sharon. We're going to refuse to apologise when we're being a little bit difficult. We've got an uncomfortable opinion, but we don't want to go around and offend anybody. It's all about education and reteaching and reconditioning, isn't it? Rather than following the old trappings of the stereotypes and problems that previous generations have had to deal with. And as Caitlin Moran puts it, the battle of equality is essentially a long, slow, hissed conversation between women in loos. And I think that's a really good point to end on today. So let me know your thoughts. It's been a long one, hopefully not too waffly. And hopefully there's something useful from this. Obviously feel free to add your comments and your thoughts below. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. Ta-ta for now.